Today our guest is Volker Kauder, Chancellor Merkel's right-hand man in the Bundestag. We'll talk about political power, building majorities, and religion as a moral compass. Welcome to the DW interview.
Thanks for inviting me.
And welcome viewers. I'm Thomas Spahn. Mr. Kauder, what's the best thing about SPD candidate Martin Schulz?
I've never thought about it. I'd rather talk about our party and let him get on with his work. But I do think it was significant that he came to our extended coalition meeting. I think it was good of him to come and to be part of that session.
Schulz is running against Chancellor Merkel in the upcoming election. But as you're fond of saying, politics is a matter of perception. You must be pleased that the right-wing populist AfD has declined in the polls since Schulz was named SPD candidate.
I don't know if there's a direct connection, but it's good that the AfD's numbers are down. At this point, it's not clear whether the AfD will be represented in the next parliament. There's still a lot to come. At the same time, since Schulz has been a candidate, we've been winning state elections.
Well, one election at least, but perhaps you'll add to that. On another topic, the SPD says it's high time that lesbians and gays be allowed to marry. You're against that. Why?
I don't think that we should re-evaluate everything. People know what marriage means. A relationship between a man and a woman. I don't want to degrade or condemn relationships between two women or two men in any way, but that's something different. That's why there are two different ways to express that.
Is there still room for traditional conservatives and traditional conservative values in Angela Merkel's CDU?
I don't know whether it's conservative. I would simply say that this is the definition that the Christian churches use.
You're a Christian and you act according to your faith. How does that relate to politics?
The gospel is not a party platform. It's the basis of each individual's relationship to God. That's why we say we're not a Christian party, but our policies are based on Christian views of humanity. In our view, people are born with both a free will and an obligation to love their neighbors. That's the definition of the Christian worldview that's found in Paul's epistle to the Galatians in the New Testament.
For years, you've taken up the cause of persecuted Christians around the world. What's behind your decision to do that?
Freedom of religion is the existential freedom. There is no freedom at all where there is no freedom of religion. Over time, Christians have been the most persecuted religious group. That's why I've been particularly interested in them. But of course, today, we've also seen the persecution of Muslims by other Muslims.
Should religions that don't respect the freedom of others enjoy freedom themselves?
Freedom of religion is fundamentally valid for every religion. But freedom of religion is also valid within the framework of German law and the German Constitution. Freedom of religion competes with other rights. The Constitution guarantees not only freedom of religion, but also the freedom of the individual and freedom of movement. In individual cases, these freedoms must be weighed against one another.
And sexual equality.
Yes, that too.
Is that the case with Islam in Germany?
Also, die sind in vielen Formen wieder wie uns Muslime begegnen, nicht gewährleistet.
There are cases in which this equality is not supported by some Muslims here. For example, when women are forced to marry, or when they're not free to decide on a career. Nevertheless, Islam is a religion that enjoys freedom in our country. That's why Muslims are allowed to build mosques. But they are not allowed to do anything in those mosques that undermines our democracy, our social order, or our values.
Your fellow conservative, Jens Spahn, no relation, says that Germany needs a law to monitor sermons in mosques and to tie the practices of Islam to the German constitution. Do you support that?
We don't need a law on Islam. Our Constitution and the legal instruments that we have to enforce the laws outlined in that Constitution are completely sufficient. If people are preaching hatred in mosques in Germany, we can easily stop that.
The Chancellor says that Islam is part of Germany. Would you agree with that?
I've always said that Muslims are a part of Germany, but Islam is not.
How do you and the Chancellor deal with such differences of opinion? Do you simply agree to disagree?
This is the only serious difference of opinion that Angela Merkel and I have ever made public. And we are fully capable of dealing with that.
You enjoy a strong position in your relations with the Chancellor. You won your electoral district with a massive majority. But you repeatedly have to twist the arms of Parliament members to win majorities for the Chancellor. You seem to be something of a taskmaster, yet you're still popular with the deputies.
Also ich würde mich auch nicht als Zuchtmeister bezeichnen, sondern ich habe
I wouldn't call myself a taskmaster.
Führungsstil, den ich nenne Führung durch
My style of leadership is what I call leading via camaraderie.
Die Kolleginnen und Kollegen zu gewinnen.
I try to win over my colleagues.
Gesprächen auch deutlich, welche Konsequenzen
I tell them what the consequences of a certain vote will be.
Was ganz entscheidend ist. Bei mir muss
Most importantly, people don't need to worry that I'll tell them one thing and then do something else behind their back. Everyone knows what the score is. I say what I think, and people can rely on that. People don't need to worry about having the wool pulled over their eyes or being put into a sack, like we say where I'm from.
On your internet homepage, it says, I wanted to be a circus ringmaster. Now, you're an experienced parliamentary chairman. Are there similarities?
There are no similarities. Circuses are intended to entertain people. But we are not trying to entertain anyone. We try to help people to lead their lives as they see fit. But I was always fascinated by the circus, because it's such a complete work of art. There are things to see, hear, and smell. That's all part of the circus. And I've never completely given up the idea of performing in a big circus show. My friend Robert Mack from the Europa Park in Rust promised me that when I retire, I can be the ringmaster for one of his winter circus performances.
You're one of the few MPs who can speak off the cuff in Parliament. Some would call that a Highwire act. Would you agree?
When you speak off the top of your head, you have an advantage, because you can follow up on what the previous speaker said. When you see that a specific point needs to be addressed, you can do that, especially if that point was raised by the opposition.
You never take vacations. Is that a key to your success?
No, I'd say I have a lot of energy, and I feed off that energy.
Now I'd like you to complete 3 sentences for us. Number 1, my parents were war refugees from Yugoslavia. As the child of refugees, I learned
that you have to integrate into a society to be truly part of it.
I was born in Hoffenheim. I hope that the local football club
continues to play exciting and attractive football. I hope that they can challenge FC Bayern. I'm a Hoffenheim fan.
If Angela Merkel wins the election and they ask me to sing that hit song by the Toten Hosen on days like these,
I wouldn't. I sang it once, and that's enough.
Volker Kauder, thank you.
My pleasure.